Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Jayo Radha Madhava Radhe Jayo Jagannatha Jayo Baladeva Subhadra Mai Jayo Sudarshana Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Anantadev Prahlad Narasimha Jayo Anantadev Jayo Nitai Chaitanya Jayo Nitai Chaitanya Nitai Chaitanya Jayo Nitai Chaitanya Jayo Jayo Prabhupada Prabhupada Jayo Jayo Prabhupada Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. God Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone on this auspicious, wonderful month of Kartik Damodar month. Thanks to you for joining in, and thanks for the organizers for giving me an opportunity to serve Srimad Bhagavatam. Seek the blessings of all the wonderful Vaishnavas here. Please bless me that I can speak a few words, and especially I'm staying in the apartment in ISKCON Jagannath Mandir, and right opposite to the apartment where I'm staying, in the flat that I'm staying, is His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj. So he's here giving us association. So we got his darshan in the morning during Mangalarti, and he's going to stay here. So if anyone is in Bangalore, do not miss today's association of Maharaj at 7 p.m. He's giving a wonderful katha. And the title is very, very thrilling. It's about how everyone became a gopi. He's probably talking about some lila there. I don't have much more details. So if you are in Bangalore, please do join in. But anyway, thanks for joining in this morning for the Bhagavatam class. We are in a very nice series of shlokas that we are discussing. This is a nice katha. I'm hoping all of you know. So does anyone want to tell me what is the topic that's going on? You can unmute yourself. You can turn on the video also if you want. What is the topic that's going on right now? The Bhagavatam discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we just completed Puranjana story.
Have you completed?
For meaning it's going on. It's 4 or 5 chapters and we are there in the series going on.
Yeah, so this Puranjana story is very, very exciting. So let me give a little bit of background on this. Thank you, Kalyani Mataji, for that. So we heard the Prithu Maharaj story, the flow comes in. So let me just share my screen before we go into today's discussion. I'm hoping my screen is visible here. So we saw Prithu Maharaj story from King Vena to Prithu Maharaj and all that. The descendants continue. And then in the descendants came a wonderful devotee called Prachina Barhi, or Prachina Barhi, or Prachina Parishad, how he's called. So this Prachina Barhi was a very nice devotee coming in the parampara of the kings who are all devotees. Now he had few sons who are called the Prachitas, and he told his sons, if you want to be good rulers, then you should get the blessings of the Supreme Lord. And he sent them off to a place in the forest where they meditated. So the descriptions are very beautiful, where they go to very wonderful place on the bank of a river and they start praying to the Supreme Lord. And while they're meditating, they get directions from Lord Shiva. This is the Rudra Geet. And Lord Shiva tells them how to worship the Supreme. So they continue their worship for another 100 years, 1,000 years, I'm just forgetting. So that's what's happening with the Prachetas, and they're supposed to come back and take over the kingdom. Meanwhile, Prachina Parshit, the king, being a devotee, starts doing some of the activities which are more karma kanda related or karma yoga related rather, and he starts performing demigod worship. He starts doing the homas and yagnas, absolutely valid, perfectly correct from a shastric or Vedic knowledge perspective. But Narad Muni is not very happy. Narad Muni thinks he's been a devotee serving the Supreme Lord. He's telling his sons that they need to worship the Supreme Lord. And why did he get into the karma kanda process or karma yoga process, wherein he's going to do all these wonderful yogas, yagnas. He basically is doing the yagnas and inviting a lot of is because of this, he will get elevated going to the heavenly planets. And is this the right destination for such a devotee? Hare Krishna, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, Prabhuji.
Okay, just one moment. Okay, something happened. Okay, I'm sorry for that. So Narad Muni is not very happy that something like this happened to Prachina Parish. So he comes over and says that you have been a devotee. Let me tell you a story. And he tells you an allegorical story, or he tells a story which is more or less to do with with a katha, not a lila, as in it's a story, not a pastime. So it's allegorical or it's a made-up story, like we tell the kids, right? And that's where he tells the story of a king called Puranjana. And this king who actually goes to the forest in search of something, okay, and he finds a queen called Puranjani, and there are wonderful descriptions on how this entire place that he's there is compared to the body, which has the city of 9 gates. Then he's attacked by different people in the city while he's trying to enjoy the city, which is what he thought as the goal of life, but he's getting attacked. And he's very, very attached to his family, his wife, his children, and so on. So every time there is an attack, he is not sure what to do. So if you remember, that's the city of 9 gates, then there is this five-hooded snake that's actually protecting the city, which is your pancha prana. Then the different descriptions of the body, the eyes, nose, ears, and everything, how they are all attacked, they're getting weaker. So Narad Muni is telling a story of Puranjana and the city and Puranjani and his family, and meanwhile telling us the description of how this body connected to his senses of the Indriyas, trying to enjoy this, but unfortunately, Kalakanya comes in, the Jara or old age kicks in, and that leads to death. And if you're attached to this body, you will get another birth. Right? So we saw that part and this part. So what happens to a person who is highly attached to his wife in the next birth? So he is born as a woman. Right? So that's how we have led to today's chapter. This is chapter 28. Puranjana becomes a woman. So we've seen the first half of this. We have seen the first half of this chapter. Right? So the story goes on very nicely. Now we are in the relatively sad part of the story where, of course, Puranjana's enjoyment and everything is over. Now he is unfortunately taken on a body. So what we saw is he's attacked left, right, center by everyone. He cannot defend. When you are in this body, trying to protect this body cannot happen. The lesson was very clearly learned. So he's lamenting for his wife and children. So this first off, I'm just using the Shubhodini by His Grace Gaura and Prabhu to take the summary. Finally, attacked by Bhaya, Puranjana dies, and after death, animals attack him. That means once you are dead, you go through your karma, you go through the reactions, and finally, you take on another body. See, Puranjana did, if you remember the story, Puranjana also did the homas and the yagnas in the city where he was there, right? So this homas and yagnas make him qualified enough to get another body, at least a human body. And that's how he gets the body of Vaidarbhi. She becomes the princess of Vidarbha called Vaidarbhi, and she's married off to Malayadwaja. Okay, so Malayadwaja is a devotee, king. So he's this lady now. So Puranjana is now become Vaidarbhi. We'll start today. We'll be addressing more or less as Vaidarbhi. So Vaidarbhi is getting married off to Malayadwaja, and this is where we stopped last time in the previous class. Ideally, at shloka number 32. There are about 65 shlokas here, so we'll continue from 33 to 65. There are two very important lessons that we will try to learn today. One, how what happened to Puranjana in his previous life? He was serving his family, his wife, and children. And because he was too attached to his wife, he got the body of a lady next time. And this is true for a Mataji who is very attached to the husband. She gets a body of a male in the next body, next birth, right? So by the reactions, of course, your desires and your karmas and other things kicks in as long as you're not a devotee, right? If you're attached to your husband, and the husband is a devotee, what happens? That's what we learn. And we learn a very important point. Srila Prabhupada takes this whole conversation or takes this whole episode of how this Vaidarbhi is serving Malayadwaja to how a disciple should serve the Guru. And that's what we will actually see. One of the most important lessons that we see. And then what happens when a devotee whom you're serving passes away? What happens to you? What happens to your position? When you're serving a spiritual master, when you're serving a spiritual authority, and they're no more in the body, what happens to you? And that's the second part of the lesson that we will learn today, which is about how the Supreme Lord himself, the Paramatma himself, or the Supreme Lord himself comes and gives you the direction. He's called the Avignata. So Avignata is basically the Paramatma form of the Lord, or the Lord who comes here as a friend to help you to get out of the city of 9 gates. Okay, so that's what we will be seeing today. Okay, and we'll see how we should not be thinking about Maya. A second half of this, right from the shlokas 56 onwards, a lot of these concepts we have already seen in Bhagavad Gita. We are going to have a refresher as given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna here, Avignata to Vaidarbhi. So we will see that. And finally, Narad Muni reveals how the whole story was meant for Prachina Barhi. The whole Puranjana story was meant for Prachina Barhi to understand that he is kind of deteriorated from where he should have been. Okay, so that's what we will see today. We will go to Shloka 34. Before that, let's do some invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayeti Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Guram Dinatan Madhamadam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. That's okay. Krishna, okay? We'll just directly jump to Shloka 33. Okay, Shloka 33. Vibhajya tanayebhya kshamam rajrishirmalayadvaja ariradhyayishu krishnam jagama kulachalam. Okay, translation, some purports by Swantis. Isi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. After this, the great saintly king Malayadvaja divided his entire kingdom among his sons. Then, in order to worship Lord Krishna with full attention, he went to a solitary place known as Kulachala. Purport, Malayadvaja, the great king, was certainly a Mahabhagavata, topmost devotee. By executing devotional service, he begot many sons and disciples for propagating the bhakti cult, Shravanam Krishnam Vishnu. Actually, the entire world should be divided among such disciples. Everyone should be engaged in preaching the cult of Krishna consciousness. In other words, when disciples are grown up and are able to preach, the spiritual master should retire and sit down in a solitary place to write and execute Nirjana Bhajana. This means sitting silently in a solitary place and executing devotional service. This Nirjana Bhajana, which is the silent worship of the Supreme Lord, is not possible for a neophyte devotee. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura never advised a neophyte devotee to go to a solitary place to engage in devotional service. Indeed, he has written a song in this connection. Dushta manatumi kisera Vaishnava pratishtare tare nirjanera ghare tava harinama kevala kaitava. My dear mind, what kind of devotee are you? Simply for cheap adoration, you sit in a solitary place and pretend to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. But this is all cheating. Thus, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura advocated that every devotee, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, preach the Bhakti cult, Krishna consciousness, all over the world. Only when one is mature can he sit in a solitary place and retire from preaching all over the world. Following this example, the devotees of International Society for Krishna Consciousness now render service as preachers in various parts of the world. Now, they can allow the spiritual master to retire from active preaching work. In the last stage of the spiritual master's life, the devotees of the spiritual master should take preaching activities into their own hands. In this way, the spiritual master can sit down in a solitary place and render Nirjana Bhajana. Om Jnanatimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahim Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savaduta Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyo Vachapatikanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasti Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna. So we'll kind of, we have many shlokas to cover, but there are few very nice purports highlighted. So I'll probably stick on to some of those in detail, and the others are, the story goes on, so we can continue that. So here, after Vaidarbhi and Malayadwaja got married, they lived happily for some time. And the king now decided to retire because he wanted to take up devotional service seriously. Right? So it very clearly says in the shloka, in order to worship Lord Krishna with full attention. So that's what was his desire. So there's a very nice aspect that we understand from a Varnashrama perspective, that there is this concept of, retiring from active life, Vanaprastha. Right, so you will see that in many places. So you actually see that in the concept of Prachinabari itself, right? So he should be planning for Vanaprastha. So here also we see the same thing. Malayadwaja decides to become a Vanaprastha. So Vanaprastha means that you retire from actively taking care of family responsibilities. We may not be in a position to actually retire off to a solitary place into the vana or into the Kulachala kind of place. So we should actually plan. Anyone who is approaching 50 years or above 50 years should understand that they should not have active responsibility of taking care of family. They should be passing it off to their children. That means that you should have a plan well before, right? So if you're in your 20s, you should know that, okay, what time should I get married? What time I should have my children? When I have to retire, my children should be of a certain age. Right? So that's called planning. If you're already late, then start planning that when is the earliest I can retire. Many devotees keep telling us that if you're approaching 45,
It's high time you plan your retirement, because you don't have all the time in the world. You never know what can turn off when, right? So be prepared. And he did a very nice thing. What he did, while he has to give up the responsibilities of the family, he cannot be blind about it, right? So he gave the responsibilities to someone else. There is a proper handover, and he gave it to his children to take care of the uh, kingdom. And Srila Prabhupada uses this, and then there is this concept of Nirjana Bhajana. We'll touch upon it in a bit, right? So Srila Prabhupada uses this concept very nicely. So the sons of King Malayadwaja, because he was a devotee, his sons ideally should have been devotees. So he gave them the responsibility so that they can continue leading as Raja Rishis. That means they will continue leading the kingdom on behalf of the Supreme Lord. They are representing the Supreme Lord. They are the topmost bhaktas. Right? So Raja, who is a rishi. So his entire kingdom prospers because everyone in the kingdom has the same goal of end of life. I should go back to God, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, serving the lotus feet of my spiritual master. If a king can enable, then that is the perfect king. And Srila Prabhupada says that kind of perfect king is what we need in today's society as well, wherein the entire world should be divided among devotees, so that this Krishna consciousness can be spread to each and every soul. We don't want to see suffering souls, right? So Srila Prabhupada, you can see Srila Prabhupada's ambition, right? So when I started reading the Bhagavad Gita for the first time, right? So in the preface, something that still strikes me, I kind of quote this many times, right? So Srila Prabhupada he's writing in 1968 or something, 1968, 69, very early days. He's just set up the Krishna consciousness movement, and he's named it International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And people are like, you don't even have 10 people. What international society are you creating? He says, that's the goal. That's the goal. The entire world can be fit into this society, right? So we always, during the Vyas Puja offering to Srila Prabhupada, we kind of quote this saying that you have created a society where the whole world can fit in. And this is where we are talking about, right? So he wants the entire world to become devotees, and he wants us to be that instrument in having to get this done. Right, so he's given us very nice responsibility. And today we'll actually be talking about this in a few places, wherein how we should serve our spiritual master, because that's going to come in the first half of this discussion itself, right? And with that bigger ambition, saying the entire world should fit in, Srila Prabhupada also writes in the preface at the end, saying that if even one person becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, a true devotee of the Lord, I think my mission is successful. Okay, so you can understand how durlabha, how rare is this opportunity. It's not easy. And Srila Prabhupada said, even if one person becomes a devotee, so it's that difficult. And then you have the entire parampara so mercifully giving you this opportunity. And if we don't take this up seriously, how foolish are we? How unfortunate are we that we are not taking up this mercy river that's flowing? You're taking, in spoon, you're trying to bring this mercy while you're trying to engage yourself in the unfortunate material situation. So that's where I think this retirement, the concept of Vanaprastha is very important, saying mentally you get retired from your active work. I'm not saying quit your job, become dependent on someone else. That I don't know. That is between you and your spiritual authorities, your spiritual master. I'm just saying that depending on your situation, what is the best that you can do, which is centered around Krishna. If you have to work and use that in Krishna service, great. If you don't want to work, use your time in Krishna service, great. But be engaged. I think yesterday we had some discussion in our Bhakti Vaibhav class. That's one thing which we learned, saying that how much of knowledge you have, if you're not engaged, actively engaged in the service of the Lord, then what is the value of that knowledge? You keep reading, saying the Prabhupada says that, okay, have only Krishna Prasad, don't overeat. Atyahara is not good. And then you go there and say, okay, a little bit of this biscuit, little bit of that chips. What is the use of that knowledge if you don't understand? And we tell people, that, okay, you know what, on the cigarette packet it says that it's injurious to your health and you're still smoking. We are also doing the same thing. We are reading that these are the things that we should not do, and then we are still doing. We are not able to come out of the social medias, the TVs, the YouTubes. I don't know what all people do today, right? So there's so much of exposure, sports, and I come from the family. I'm not saying that I'm good. I'm telling it to myself more than anyone else, whatever I'm saying. Okay, so the second aspect of this shloka itself is he retired. He went into a solitary place known as Kulachala, right? So Kulachala is some place. We'll leave that. But what is this solitary place? What will he do in a solitary place? He will do nirjana bhajana, continuous bhajana of the Lord without any jana around him, right? Without people around him. That means he's doing it alone. Okay, so solitary place you go, you meditate on the Lord, like you have many of our acharyas as well going into the cave where they were chanting the bhajan kutis. They were solely dedicated or focused. You have seen this, but Srila Prabhupada mentions that it's not something for a sadhaka bhakta or a neophyte stage. You should be a highly advanced devotee to do this. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes it saying that don't go to a solitary place so that you get adoration of going there. Right? So, oh, you know this person, he spends 22 hours chanting in this solitary place. Or whatever, 2 hours, 12 hours, whatever is that number. Right? So you become proud of that, you're stuck. Right? So pride is the last thing you want to give. Like that, we have always said that it's very, very difficult to give up pride. That's what happens. So we should continue. So when should we take up Nirjana Bhajan? He says, if my disciples take up preaching very actively, then I can retire. That's what he's saying. The devotees of ISKCON now render service as preachers to the worldwide so that the spiritual master can retire from active preaching work. Srila Prabhupada never retired. Till the last day he was preaching. Yes, he was guiding or preaching to his disciples who would go out and preach because his health was deteriorating. Never stopped preaching. And very, very, very recently, I saw a message from His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj, where he said something very, very similar. As long as I have this body, I know my body is not very capable. He's like, I think most of you would know, right? So Guru Maharaj's health is very, very weak, very fragile, if I have to use the right word. Right? So, and he says, as long as I have this body, I have my service to Prabhupada. I cannot stop. And I don't want to stop. Yes, I may not be able to do what I was doing earlier, traveling all over the world so many times. He's got one of the biggest passports in the world, not only within his country. So he's got the biggest passports with stamps left, right, center. So I used to do, but I'm not able to do. But as long as I'm in this body, as long as I have a body, I want to be in the service of Srila Prabhupada. And that actually means that none of us can have any excuse from being actively in the service of the Lord, actively preaching, actively taking up this. If you have breath, right? So it says if you have prana, that means you have to be preaching. Otherwise, you're a dead body. Okay, we'll come back to the story. Spend some time there. Okay, just as the moonshine follows the moon at night, immediately after King Malayadwaja departed for Kulachala, his devoted wife, whose eyes were very enchanting, followed him, giving up all homely happiness despite family and children. Okay, so here you're talking about a very obedient, sincere wife. What happens to such a person, right? So she had all the comfort. She had her grown-up sons. If she's a devotee, she'll follow her husband wherever he goes, if the husband is a devotee. So it says some of his advanced devotees follow him and engage in his personal service, like a guru when he goes off in the previous shloka, right? So Srila Prabhupada mentioned about a guru who is now can retire and give preaching work to his disciples. The disciples continue the preaching work. The guru retires to a bhajana, nirjana bhajana. That means he wants to stay solitary and do bhajana. Set of devotees, 2-3 disciples, will go along with him to serve the guru, because when you serve an advanced devotee, Lord is very pleased with you, right? So they also take this opportunity to serve the guru. Similarly, here the wife, Vaidharbi, is actually going. with her husband. Okay. In other words, those who are very fond of family life should come forward in the service of the spiritual master and abandon so-called happiness afforded by society, friendship, and love. Okay. So are we fond of our family life? Yes. Srila Prabhupada says, and give it up for Krishna. Come forward in the service of the spiritual master. Okay. If you think your social status, your friends, your family are the ones giving you happiness, I'm sorry, that's not the right one. It is, the happiness comes from Lord Krishna. So start taking it up seriously. Right? Why serve the spiritual master? Because Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasada. His mercy, Prasada is mercy, right? So whose mercy is the mercy of the Supreme Lord? That means the Supreme Lord and the spiritual master are not different. And the easiest way to please the Supreme Lord is to please the spiritual master. And the easiest way to please the spiritual master is to take up his orders and follow it sincerely. And all of our spiritual masters, all the spiritual masters that I have seen, their focus is very simple. Be actively preaching the Krishna consciousness movement to each and every one. Okay, so in this shloka, there is a very nice word. Madhire Kshana. Madhira, we know, is liquor. Aksha is the ice. So Madhira Ikshana means the enchanting eyes of the daughter of King Vidarbha. Right, so Queen with Vaidarbhi was having a very nice intoxicated eyes. This reminds that it's not Srila Prabhupada's purpose of wonderful here, right? So we'll try to cover, don't worry, we'll try to cover the entire chapter. If one's eyes become intoxicated upon seeing the deity, he may be called Madhirekshana. Okay, I've just highlighted in green, right? So if we are intoxicated by looking at the eyes of the deity, by looking at the deity, then we are in this situation of being Madhirekshana, right? So we are in the intoxicated by seeing the eyes. And who better, right? So we are from Jagannath Mandir, and Jagannath is such huge, beautiful eyes. Very easily, that's the feature of Jagannath when you look at Jagannath, right? So he is looking with those beautiful big eyes, saying that, is there a tinge of love, tinge of bhakti somewhere in this person? And he just got his open arm saying that, if you have that love, come over, let me hug you, let me take you into my shelter. Right, so that's the mercy of Jagannath. We always feel, at least because we serve Jagannath closely, we always feel that Jagannath is just waiting to attract, pull each and every one of us. And his eyes are really intoxicated. You look at his eyes, you're like, wow. Right, so that happens. And there are a lot of wonderful pastimes connected to this. I wanted to tell one very nice pastime. I'll keep it short. You might have heard it in the past. So this is a pastime that usually the Sri Vaishnava disciples of Sripad Ramanujacharya quote. Once there was an initiated disciple of Sripad Ramanujacharya who got married, and he had a very, very beautiful wife. And Sripad Ramanujacharya once saw him while Sripad Ramanujacharya and his Goshti, his disciples, were going, let's assume Srirangam, I don't know the place, but it's in Srirangam. While he was going, so he saw that there was this disciple of his who was going behind his wife, carrying some luggage in the marketplace, but he was so obediently following his wife. So he told his disciples, why don't we invite him? I want to talk to him, right? So usually the spiritual master is very concerned with his disciples, right? So he called and he said, how are you? How is your spiritual life going? And so on. So he says, everything is fine. Grahastha life, right? So that 2 hours of spiritual life is big thing for all of us. So yeah, everything is going fine. I have a very wonderful family, a beautiful wife, and I'm very attracted to her. Is there a problem? Yes, I'm attracted to her. Okay, why? Oh, she's so beautiful. I just can't come out of it. So Sripad Ramanujacharya tells him, I don't have a Shastric reference, but this is the story I've heard. So Sripad Ramanujacharya tells him, why don't you come to the temple tomorrow? Temple of Lord Ranganath in Srirangam, right? So why don't you come to the temple tomorrow morning while I'm going? You can join me as well. We'll have some special darshan. So he says, okay, and he's been there for a long time. So he's seen everything there, right? So he goes to the temple, and with Shripad Ramanacharya takes him near the deity, as in wherever they're allowed to go near the deity, and they says, look at the beautiful Lord and look at his eyes. So they look, this person looks at the eyes of Ranganatha, just falls down flat, and he says, there is nothing more beautiful I've ever seen. So, and then he comes back to his spiritual consciousness, serving very actively. His family life, he continues. He's a grasta. He continues to take care. He continues to have all the responsibilities and the love for his family, his wife and his children and everything. But centered around Krishna. And when you take your spiritual master's instructions, the Lord just reveals himself. The Lord just reveals himself, right? So this person, he's been in Sri Rangam, he's seen the Lord all his life. But when Shripad Ramanujacharya says, now you look at the Lord, and he just faints. And this will what will happen to us when we are serving sincerely. The Lord will himself come out through the spiritual master to tell us what he is. Because we do not have the eyes for the Lord, right? So we can serve, we can tell Jagannath is very beautiful, he's got beautiful eyes. But that complete bewilderment when I see the Lord, that is still not happening. Okay. Malayadwaja continues. In the province of Kulachala, there are rivers named Chandravasa, Tamarabarni, and Vatodaka. King Malayadwaja used to go to those pious rivers regularly and take his bath there. Thus, he purified himself externally and internally. He took his bath and ate bulbs, seeds, leaves, flowers, fruits, roots, and grasses, and drank water. In this way, he underwent severe austerities. Eventually, he became very skinny. Right, so a king who's led a very royal life is now taken the life of a retired mendicant in the forest, eating what is available by nature. So obviously he becomes very skinny, very weak. And this is where so there is this Atyahara Prayasascha Prajalpo Niyamagraha. Right, so you know the shloka from Nectar of Instruction. Atyahara, eating more than required or accumulating more than required. You remember the shloka, right? Oh, nice shloka. We should all be knowing some Nectar of Instructions. So one of those concepts that actually makes us fall off from our spiritual life. Shadvida Bhakti Vinashyati. Right? So something that will be deterrent to your spiritual life. One of them is Atyahara. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that if one becomes too fat, it is to be assumed that he is not advancing spiritually. So we should have control over our tongue. Unfortunately, I'm saying this because again, coming back to our Jagannath temple, our Jagannath eats the Chapan Bhog. Today is Dwadashi, right? So yesterday, Kadashi, we have fasted, but today is Dwadashi. So he's going to have Chapan Bhog. That means that when we go for breakfast now or lunch later in the temple, we are going to get a lot of items, right? So we keep eating, but the concept is very simple. Don't overeat, eat only prashadam and not more than what is required. Many times some senior Vaishnavas says, so when you're serving prashadam, serve as much as the other person wants so that they don't waste it. So we don't do conjuicy when you serve. But when you're eating, be very careful of how much you're taking. Your stomach should be half full. The other half is meant for water. The other half is, other quarter is meant for water. The other quarter is meant for the air so that the digestion happens very nicely. And ideally, so yesterday was Ekadashi, I'm hoping all of you fasted and chanted more, at least more services. We should have all done. In fact, there are places I've heard some acharyas say, my Guru Maharaj says that on Ekadashi you should chant 25 rounds, 25 rounds minimum, right, instead of 16. So many of you are there who are Guru Maharaj disciples. So you know that, and it's possible to do that. Though on Ekadashis we have made it of fancy food. So anyways, so this king was leading a very sober life. So he became thing. Through austerity taking, Malayadwaja in body and mind gradually became equal to the dualities of cold and heat, happiness and distress, wind and rain, hunger and thirst, the pleasant and the unpleasant. In this way, he conquered all relativities. So in Bhagavad Gita, if you remember, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkada, Shita or Ushna, Sukha or Dukkha, a person who is equipoised, he's called a Dhira. Dhira Tatrana Muhyati. Dhira does not get bewildered by the dualities of nature. So all of us have our own set of dualities that we look at, right? So, but over a period of time, we would have also understood that some of these dualities do not affect us directly, right? So you're not very concerned. Some of those, this is not something. Initially, you might be very attached to it. Or how can they take away this? Oh, this is not very happy for me. This is very depressing for me. This is very hot for me, very cold for me. Today, when you get prashadam, it's prashadam. You pay obeisances, tell the mantras, and start honoring. You're not looking at if it's hot, if it's cold. Ideally, we should not. We should not. There's some very nice devotees that I know of who actually give lesser and lesser importance to the prashadam, because they know if it's offered and the Lord has accepted, who am I to even complain? If it's hot, cold, I should not be worried. Of course, if the body doesn't take, that's a different story. So ideally, a person, as you're progressing in spiritual life, you will not be affected by the dualities of the spiritual life. This is wonderful part of the purport that's highlighted in green. I'll come there. So very well, if you want to come out of these dualities, you need to do bhakti yoga. So this keeps vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan sapatite brahmavoyaya kalpate. When you're engaged in bhakti yoga in full devotional service, automatically you come to the transcendental platform, you come to the Brahman platform. So the material dualities do not affect you. And ideally, we keep hearing Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. Tivra Bhakti is very important. We should, so all of you are here, we should be progressing. All of us are here. So we should be taking Bhakti very seriously. Okay, just reading this green portion. If one is factually engaged in the service of the Lord, Bhakti Yoga, he will automatically control his senses, his tongue, and so many other things. Once engaged in Bhakti Yoga process with all sincerity, one will have no choice of falling down, no chance of falling down. Even if one falls down, there is no loss. One's devotional activities may be stunned or choked for the time being, but as soon as there is another chance, the practitioner begins from the point where he left off. Okay, why did I highlight? It's a very simple thing. It's a lesson for all of us that says that if you're progressing, if you feel that you're progressing in Krishna consciousness, if you're progressing in bhakti, that means your senses are in control, starting with the tongue. Okay, everything starts with the tongue. Jiva is the most important. You chant with the jiva, you eat with the, you taste with the jiva. So it starts there. The prashadam goes in, the Hare Krishna mantra comes out. So if you're able to control what you're able to speak, whatever is not required, right? So prajalpa, not getting into any kind of gossip, anything other than Krishna, if you're able to control speaking and fault finding, of course, and you're able to control your food habits, eating only prashadam, eating only as much as required, that means you're progressing. Then you will see that the other senses in your body are also controlled. Okay. By worshipping, executing austerities, and following the regulative principles, King Malayadwaja conquered his senses, his life, and his consciousness. Thus, he fixed everything on the central point of the Supreme Brahman, Krishna. Right? So, he progressed very nicely. In this way, he stayed immobile in one place for 100 years by the calculation of the demigods. At this time, he developed pure devotional attraction for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and remained fixed in that position. So, both husband and wife, Malayadwaja and Vaidarbhi, have retired and gone to this Kulachala, and here he's just taken up meditation. He's completely surrendered to the Lord. He's retired from everything, and he's fully 100 years by the calculation of demigods. We all know the demigod times. I'll not go into that, but he's meditating. Yes, this was happening in the previous yugas. If you look at Kali Yuga, we may not even have 100 years of our own lifetime. Forget the demigod's lifetime. We all know the demigod lifetime. I'm not spending time here. So Srila Prabhupada says, after many lifetimes, Bahunam Janmanam Ante, you actually get this opportunity to understand Vasudeva Sarvam. Okay. So such Mahatma is Durlabha, right? So Srila Prabhupada mentions it's not very common for us, but it's possible that we can do it in one lifetime. King Malayadwaja attained perfect knowledge by being able to distinguish the super soul from the individual soul. The individual soul is localized, whereas the super soul is all pervasive. He became perfect in knowledge that the material body is not the soul, but the soul is the witness of the material body. So the first knowledge that you get, Srila Prabhupada keeps mentioning, right? You are not this body, but you are the soul, a person who is able to distinguish. In chapter 13, we see the Kshetragnam, right? So you are the Kshetra, the body, and the Kshetragna, the knower of the body. So knowing that I'm not the body is the first qualification. So he understood the body is different, the soul is different, and there is the Lord, the super soul, who is in this body. So Malayadwaja attained perfection of knowledge by being able to distinguish the soul and super soul and the soul in the material body. Okay. In this way, King Malayadwaja attained perfect knowledge because in his pure state, he was directly instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By means of such enlightened transcendental knowledge, he could understand everything from all angles of vision. Tesham Satatayuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. I give the intelligence by which he can come back to me. That's what the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, right? So he's getting direct instructions, direct buddhi from the Supreme Lord. He's getting all the knowledge that is required. King Malayadwaja could thus observe that the super soul was sitting by his side and that he as individual soul was sitting by the side of the super soul. Since both are together, there was no need of separate interest. Thus, he ceased from such activities. What does it mean? The super soul is is actually your witness and your approver, right? Upadrishta and Anumanta, correct? So the super soul gives you the permission to even do any activities, even have a dream. Even that is permitted by the Lord only, right? So he keeps permitting you to do all the nonsense because you want that, you have the desire. Imagine your desire is to serve the Lord. He permits it. That means both of you have the same interest. That means he, as a Supreme Lord, is the receiver of all the services. You, as individual soul, is meant for serving, and both of your interest is the same thing. So you have this direct connection or direct conversation with the Lord. One cannot serve the Lord without being situated on the spiritual platform. Thus, if a so-called material thing is dovetailed in the service of the Lord, it is no longer to be considered material. This is how the pure devotee in his perfect vision sees from all angles. Right, so this is a nice point, right? So when you are engaged in service, for example, all of us are engaged in reading Srimad Bhagavatam right now. This, though we are using the material elements, right? So I'm using this book, the laptop, the paper, pen, the mic and headsets and all that, though everything is material here, and I'm in this material body, but the activity, when it is spiritual, then connected to spirit, then the whole thing becomes spiritual. Somehow or other, early morning, all of you are logging in, thanks to the Gita Gyan team, all of us are spiritually engaged for this timing. And that is the best part. So don't miss these classes. I unfortunately missed them because Saturdays you have other services, but this is a wonderful opportunity every day for that matter. Okay, so Malayadwaja is very settled now. He's serving, he's in fact having direct conversation with the Lord. He's gone to that extent. What happens to his wife? The daughter of King Vidarbha accepted her husband all in all as the supreme. She gave up all sensual enjoyment and in complete renunciation followed the principles of her husband, who was so advanced. Thus, she remained engaged in his service. So if you remember, Puranjana was very attracted to his wife, so he continued to serve his wife. Both of them were not spiritually progressive. Here, Vaidarbhi is attached to her husband, but the husband is a devotee. He is not giving her much focus, but because she is engaged in serving him, she is also spiritually progressing. That is the idea of a perfect couple, right? The spiritual master. Okay. Now, similar to this wife sincerely serving her husband, even without the husband noticing much about her, similarly, a disciple should serve the spiritual master. That instruction will keep coming. The spiritual master should never be neglected or disobeyed like an ordinary person. If we have got an instruction from a spiritual master, a Diksha Guru, we should 100% follow it without any doubt. And even if you're getting from a Shiksha Guru or your spiritual counselors, we should follow it. The only difference is you can ask questions as to why, what, how. But to spiritual master, you can ask how to serve, not why why are you giving me this service? Yes, most of the time the spiritual masters explain, but if you tell, go do it, you just do it. Like Srila Prabhupada told one disciple while they were traveling in a train, there was one place where some guest came to meet Srila Prabhupada in the train and they gave some bhog. They got it. So Prabhupada was talking to this person, and this person says, yeah, you're doing such a wonderful job. You're going all over the world. This was in India. And he had some foreign disciples with him. You're going all over the world. You're doing such a wonderful job. Someday you should come to our place also, start one international society for Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada looked at his disciple, who was a foreign body disciple, and says, why don't you get off in the station with this disciple and go start an ISKCON center? And the disciple paid obeisance and said, sure, Prabhupada, as you desire. And he went. This is today, if someone tells, forget the husband telling, even if the spiritual master tells, we'll have thousands of questions, right? So that is the dedication, right? So absolutely focused on accepting the words of the spiritual master as your life and soul, right? So if a woman is fortunate enough to be the wife of a pure devotee, she can serve her husband without any desire for sense gratification. If she remains engaged in the service of her exalted husband, she will automatically attain the spiritual perfection of her husband. If a disciple gets a bona fide spiritual master, simply by satisfying him, he can attain a similar opportunity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, here, let me give some clarification. I know some doubts might come. We have little time. So if the husband is not a devotee, what happens to a wife? She accepts the spiritual master's words and serves him to the best of knowledge, while she also takes care of her family responsibilities like her husband, her in-laws, her children, and gives them the prasadam and the knowledge and opportunity to serve the Lord so that they become devotees as well, and pray for them. Right? So there she need not follow her husband. If the husband is not an exalted devotee, that's what we're seeing in a couple of places. The husband is not a devotee. She does not need to materially keep following her husband, but as a pativrata or a wife, she can do whatever best is possible. So the husband is also trying to get into Krishna consciousness. Like if the husband is not even interested, she can just say that, okay, you don't need to come to temple, but can you drop me to the temple, or can you come to the Rath Yatra, the Lord is coming out. You may not be interested. If the husband agrees, okay. If the husband doesn't agree, you just keep praying. Similarly, whatever she's cooking, she can offer it to the Lord and then serve to the family. The family will slowly but surely develop. And she can give the association of wonderful Vaishnavas. Like I said, if the husband is favorable but not too serious and so on, like we have His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj today, bring them to the temple. You never know who hits the right nail. I am not able to do it. Someone else might be able to do it, but always give them the opportunity. Don't give up on them. Okay. Similarly to the husband who does not have a wife. Some of us might be here whose wife is not very favorable, right? So in that case, again, the same thing applies. You continue being a very nice devotee. If she is serving you some or other, even though she is not interested here, we have not heard if Vaidharvi was a devotee or not. Puranjana had his material issues, right? So we don't know what was her mental state, but because she was serving, knowingly, unknowingly, as a responsibility, whatever it is, she will also progress. She will get an opportunity to get out, right? So always keep them. Again, the same concept. Do not reject people, but of course, each situation is different. So I'm just giving a general theory. Your situation, you know better. You can talk to your spiritual authorities. The daughter of King Vidarbha wore old garments, and she was lean and thin because of her woes of austerity. Since she did not arrange her hair, it became entangled and twisted in locks. Although she remained always near her husband, she was as silent and unagitated as the flame of an undisturbed fire. So when the husband and wife are together, there are agitations that are possible, right? So here, because Malayadwaja became such a wonderful devotee, right? So he was not caring much for his own body, forget having sense gratification desires. So looking at him and serving him, she also was silent and she was never agitated by different desires. So Srila Prabhupada very clearly not agitated by sex impulses, right? So as you progress, this will keep coming down, and he elaborates on the Vanaprastha stage of life, where the husband and wife remain together for the service of the Lord, not for anything else. And Srila Prabhupada, and more so my spiritual master, keep emphasizing that the Grihastha, as he progresses, should become a Paramahamsa, right? So Paramahamsas are usually meant for sannyasis, but the Grihastha serving the Lord together is on that stage, so that they get qualified children who are going to continue this mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada and serving others. The daughter of King Vidarbha continued as usual to serve her husband, who was seated in a steady posture, until she could ascertain that he had passed away from the body. So she did not even talk to her husband, right? So she was just serving him, whatever was his requirement. So for 100 years, we just heard in the previous shlokas, he was just sitting and meditating in a very steady posture. So she continued to serve whatever. And she, over a period of time, realized that he had left the body. Obviously, she should be fully disconnected, right? Not really. Okay. What happens is what we'll see. While she was serving her husband by massaging his legs, she could feel that his feet were no longer warm and could thus understand that he had already passed away from the body. She felt great anxiety upon being left alone. Bereft of her husband's company, she felt exactly as a deer feels upon being separated from its mate. So, while the services are all happening, you can see that there is affection that is not lost. You don't become stone-hearted. Don't become stone-hearted. So there's again nice story connected to this. I'm hoping we have time. Let me keep it quick. Okay, 46, another close to 20 shlokas. There's nice story wherein two disciples, two devotees or disciples go to the Guru, and they said that please take us into the ashram, take us in your shelter. Okay, we want to become full-timers. Right? So the Guru says, why both of you are grastas? Why do you want to become full-timers? Right? So both of them say that actually we lost our wife. Each of them lost their own wife. Okay. So the Guru calls the first, so he sends them both. I will interview you for full-timer. You need certain qualification. So he calls the first person in. The first person comes in and he says, what happened? He says, I lost my wife, and starts crying, saying that we were married for 20 years. You know what? She just died and I can't live without her. So I just want to become a full-time devotee. Please engage me in your service. The Guru says, okay, please stand out. He calls other person in. The other person comes in and he says to the Guru asks what happened. And he says the same thing, saying that it was about 18, 20 years. I was staying with her and unfortunately I lost her. So I don't see anything else as a purpose of life. I want to become a full-time devotee. So he was not crying. He did not have much of an emotion. So the Guru says, you also go out. And he calls his disciple, Sishya, servant, and says that there are two people, right? The first person was crying heavily that he lost his wife, and the second person, more sober, he was not too worried about the husband. He says, both of them, tell the first person to come join full-time tomorrow, and the other person, you train them so that he can join later. The disciple is fully surprised. Arey, I didn't expect this. This person is so attached to his wife, crying that he lost his wife and all that. And you're telling he's ready to become a full-timer, he can join tomorrow itself. While the other person is so disconnected, right? So detached. And you're saying that he has to wait. How does this work? So the Guru explains. See, the first person, after 20 years of marriage, is so connected to his wife that he's crying non-stop for her. All I need to do is switch that connection to his wife to the Lord. Disconnect from wife, switch to the Lord. He's already so emotionally heavy that the moment he gets in touch with the Lord, he will progress. The other person, even after 20 years of attachment to his wife, is so rigid and disconnected. He needs time because that love for the Lord, how will it come? He doesn't have love inside him that he can't show it to his wife who's serving him for 20 years. So, as devotees, we don't become robots, we don't become stone-hearted. We have our love, we have our emotions. Yes, we may exhibit in different ways. Some person might cry, some person may not cry. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that love that we have is we're just redirecting that eternal love that we have towards the Lord, because now it is directed towards everything else. From the beautiful heroine to the superstars to the cricket stars to the businessmen to the family, whatever it is, we have unfortunately redirected all these pieces of love. Just pull them all, show it towards the Lord. We are done. So it's not stone-hearted pieces. So she feels great anxiety, which is a normal course of time. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that if a guru, whenever the guru leaves, we are also in great anxiety because we cannot live a moment without the Guru. And the Guru continues to stay with us through his instructions, through his words, through the Vani. Okay, being now alone and widowed in the forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears which soaked her breast and crying very loudly. So you can see this, and Srila Prabhupada uses the same thing that I told. So spiritual master's company is, you want to serve the spiritual master for his pleasure. Okay, the instructions continue. O best of the kings, please get up, get up. Just see this world around, surrounded by water and infested with rogues and so-called kings. This world is very much afraid, and it is your duty to protect her. Right? So here Vaidarbi is crying to Malaya Dwaja, saying that, Are, how can you leave me here and go? This is filled with rogues and the so-called kings who are troubling people. Why don't you get up and protect the land? Right? We'll continue. The most obedient wife thus fell down at the feet of her husband, dead husband, and began to cry pitifully in that solitary forest. Thus the tears rolled down from her eyes. There's a nice instruction here. It says, just as a devoted wife becomes afflicted by the passing away of husband, when the spiritual master passes away, the disciple becomes similarly bereaved. Right? So it's not easy to understand the separation of the spiritual authority. She then prepared a blazing fire with firewood and placed the dead body of her husband upon it. When this was finished, she lamented severely and prepared herself to perish in the fire with her husband. So this Sahamarana concept, this Sati concept of the wife entering the fire of her husband, Srila Prabhupada says, was prevalent even in the British era, right? So this was there. Unfortunately, what happened is this is done purely out of love. I can't live without the husband for a moment, and the qualified husband, wherever he goes, the destination of the wife is also the same. That was in the earlier yugas, or that was in the earlier days, you can say earlier yugas. But unfortunately, in the modern yuga, where the wife is not even attached but forced to die with the husband, that's where the whole process got deviated. So I'm not saying we should reintroduce sati or whatever it is. I'm just saying that it was a normal process in the past. We have heard of how Madri passed away with Pandu, and Kunti Devi took care of all the 5 children. We have seen many such examples in the past. Here, highlighted in red is something that's a little hard-hitting. Similarly, a devoted disciple of the spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission. Okay, spiritual master, our own spiritual masters have given us so many instructions to follow. When you are deviating, when you're not following, when you're not executing the orders of the spiritual master, the desire and the instructions of the spiritual master, you are as good as dead body, or we are as good as dead body. So we should always keep that focus. So my spiritual master keeps mentioning this, saying that Srila Prabhupada gave me these instructions and I need to follow. And anyone who is a disciple of His Holiness Jayaprakash Swami Guru Maharaj would know this, right? So he keeps saying this whenever he gives initiation. Are you ready to serve me in my mission to Srila Prabhupada? So that's what I said, the Srila Guru Maharaj's disciples, so the spiritual master's disciple should be the life and soul, desire and instructions. Okay. My dear king, one Brahmana who was an old friend of King Puranjana came to that place and began to pacify the queen with sweet words. So the queen was so attached, she was crying. So there was a Brahmana who came. Okay. The appearance of Brahmana is significant because we are talking about the Brahmana who is the Paramatma, who is come here. Avijnata, right? So his story will come. The Paramatma is sitting in our heart region and is giving us the directions. Okay, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, appeared before the queen as Brahmana, but why didn't he appear in his original form as Krishna? Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur remarks that unless one is very highly elevated in loving service of the personality, they cannot see him. Right? One cannot see him. That's why he comes in, he takes a Vesha so that he comes and gives the directions. Okay, this one is also a nice shloka from Krishna Karnamrita by Bilva Mangal Thakur, right? So if I'm engaged in devotional service unto you, my dear Lord, then very easily can I perceive your presence everywhere. As far as liberation is concerned, I think, so the liberation is waiting at my doorstep with folded hands because I'm now engaged in service. I told her, you just wait. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha doesn't even have a place there. Right? So I'm not even worried about moksha. What about Dharma, Artha, and Kama? For me, everything is the service of the Lord. So now this Brahmana who's come in, who the Lord himself who's come in, he asks her, inquires as follows: who are you? Whose wife or daughter are you? Who is the man lying here? It appears you're lamenting for this dead body. Don't you recognize me? I'm your eternal friend. You may remember that many times in the past you have consulted me. Right? So the Paramatma is our constant companion since the time we came here to the material world. The soul and the Paramatma, the super soul, are never separated. Right? Whichever body we have taken, the Lord has been with us. And he is automatically taken care of every time. Okay. So this when a person's relative dies, renunciation is automatically visible. This is what we call as smashana vairagya. Correct? Smashana vairagya. You've heard this. When you go to the smashana, you see so many dead bodies. Or someday I will also die. You become very sober. You're ready to hire the instructions, and you come home very very sad. And a few minutes later, someone turns on the TV. You're watching. Then you're saying, "Okay, lungi dance, lungi dance." Arey, life is jolly. Right? So Spashana Vairagya doesn't stay for long, but people take up instructions when they are in a very sober mode. When you lose someone very dear to you, when someone very close to you is admitted to the hospital, not well, whatever it is, right? So if someone is giving you instructions, you take it up very, very seriously, right? So now the Paramatma is giving her the instruction because she's attached to her husband, who is a devotee. She's not very knowledgeable in that sense. She's not practiced too much of devotion. Her devotion has always been towards her husband. And that's where we said the two topics today, right? The one is, of course, serving the husband or the spiritual master. The second topic is how the Lord becomes that very dear friend, is looking at your service attitude. The Brahmana continued, my dear friend, even though you cannot immediately recognize me, can't you remember that in the past you have been very intimate friends? You had a very intimate friend. Unfortunately, you gave up my company and accepted a position as enjoyer of this material world. Now we felt on. Okay, how did we fall is explained here. Please read this purport at your own. This is shloka number 53. Okay, 753. So I'll skip this. But basically, we were with the Lord. We had the desire to enjoy independently of the Lord. That's why He created this. We are all part and parcel of the Lord, right? So we are parcel, but because when the living entity desires to enjoy themselves, they develop a consciousness of duality and come to this concept. So we heard about duality. So now I see that, okay, I like this person, I hate this person. Why is the Lord enjoying? Why am I not enjoying? If you have such a concept that there is no possibility of that existing in the spiritual world, the presence of envy or hatredness does not exist in the spiritual world. So automatically we have come to the material world. You can read through the purports. It's very, very wonderful purports here. Into shloka 54. My dear gentle friend, both you and I are exactly like two swans. We live together in the same heart, which is just like the Manasa lake. Although we have been living together for many thousands of years, we are still far away from our original home. Right? So Manasarovar, like our heart region, the Lord and the soul and the super soul stay together. While the super soul watches, the soul performs. My dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic and not seeing me. You have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which are created by some women. Who is that some woman who creates? Maya Devi. She maintains everything. So you turn your face away from Krishna, the Maya looks at you, right? So you are just attached to this Bhoga world. Bhoga Vanchakare, right? So more and more materialistic you have become because you left me. Now I have come to you. So let me take you back. Okay. How does the Lord take you back? He gives you the right instructions to the right authority. Right? So Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Beej. The Bhakti Lata Beej, the seed of Bhakti that is placed in our heart by Guru Krishna Prasade, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. So when the Lord is very, very pleased with you, He sends you a bona fide spiritual master. And when you are serious and sincere, the spiritual master gives you the Lord back. He takes you back. Okay, so two basic instructions we have covered. Just 5 more shlokas. We'll wrap it up. Basically, we are looking at the body, where the explanation, like I said, the Bhagavad Gita concept comes in the last 4 or 5 shlokas. Right? That's what we are seeing here. In the city, the material body, there are 5 gardens, 9 gates, 1 protector, 3 apartments, 6 families, 5 stores, 5 material elements, and 1 woman who is the lord of the house. My dear friend, the 5 gardens are the 5 objects of sense enjoyment, and the protector of is the life air which passes through the 9 gates. The 3 apartments are the chief ingredients, which is fire, water, and earth. The 6 families are the aggregate total of the mind and 5 senses. Okay, the explanation is given right here. If you have any questions, then you can ask. Otherwise, we can go on. Okay, basically the prana along with the karmendriyas, the jnanendriyas in this body, which is of 9 gates or the 9 poles, and the 3 gross elements, not the 5 gross elements, but 3 gross elements, which is fire, water, and earth. Air is subtle and ether is even subtler. Right, so that's why he's talking about the gross elements and the mind and the 5 karmendriyas. The 5 stores are the 5 working sensory organs. They transact their business through the combined forces of the 5 elements, which are eternal. Behind all this activity is the soul. The soul is a person and an enjoyer in reality. However, because he is now hidden within the city of the body, he is devoid of knowledge. See, the soul as a person is actually the enjoyer in reality. Okay. Anandamayo Bhyasa, that is the position of the soul. He is always in Ananda. That's what we are looking for, right? So if there is one question that anyone asks, saying that what are you looking for in life? What do you need in life? All you need is happiness. Not millions of dollars, not a six-pack body, not a big car, a big house, whatever it is. What you need is happiness. And we think these material things will give us happiness. Okay, that is the unfortunate situation. But the soul's happiness is not there in the material things. My dear friend, when you enter such a body along with the women of material desires, you become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment. Because of this, you have forgotten your spiritual life. Due to your material conception, you are placed in various miserable conditions. Okay, so we all have 100% capacity. How much you fill your life with material things is the remaining space for spiritual. And if you say that you have 24 hours, out of which you are 16 hours busy with work and family and everything, 8 hours you're going to sleep and miscellaneous activities, then you don't have time for Krishna. So when you started Krishna consciousness, as it progressed a few years, devotees would have told 8 hours of KC. 2 hours of KC, right? Chanting will take so much time, a little bit of reading and hearing you do. Then that 2 became 2.5, then it should become 3. So many of us are probably stuck in this 3 hours of KC, wherein you have your offering, your daily at least 1 lamp offering or whatever you do, and then 16 rounds of chanting, 30 minutes of hearing, 30 minutes of reading, right? So we probably have this 2.5, 3 hours. We need to increase it to an extent wherein we don't have gap for something else to come in. So we don't have this forgetfulness of Krishna. The more we cover the 100% with KC, the better it is for us. Okay. Actually, you are not the daughter of Vidarbha, nor is this man, Malay Dwaja, your well-wishing husband. No, nor were you the actual husband of Puranjani. You were simply captivated in the body of 9 gates. You're just moving from one body to another. Sometimes you think yourself a man, sometimes a chaste woman, and sometimes a neutral image. This is all because of the body, which is created by the illusory energy. The illusory energy is my potency, and actually both of us, you and I, are pure spiritual entities. Now just to understand this, I'm trying to explain our factual position. Okay, so the Lord is telling about you have been moving through these different bodies. We have all seen this in the Bhagavad Gita, that the like you go from youth, old age, and so on to death. Similarly, you take on another body and another body and body and keep going on. My dear friend, I, the super soul, and you, the individual soul, are non-different in quality, for we are both spiritual. In fact, my dear friend, we are qualitatively not different from you, are qualitatively not different from me in your constitutional position. Just try to consider the subject. Those who are actually advanced scholars who are in knowledge do not find any qualitative difference between you and me. I know it is 8 o'clock. Can we please continue another 3 shlokas exactly to finish? Right. So the Lord confirms that qualitatively the soul and the super soul are the same. While he is Vibhu, we are Anu. That means he is infinite, we are infinitesimal, we are minute. As the person sees the reflection of his body in a mirror to be one with himself and not different, whereas others actually see two bodies. So in our material condition, in which the living entity is affected and yet not affected, there is a difference between God and the living entity. Right. So in the material situation, we are matter, he is spirit. In a spiritual situation, as a soul, we are also the same spirit. In this way, both spans live together in heart when one when the one swan is instructed by the Lord, he is situated in his constitutional position. This means he regains his original Krishna consciousness, which was lost because of his material attraction. Okay, so why are we here? Because we have lost our material spiritual attraction. Okay, but when we lose our material attraction, we can regain our spiritual attraction. Okay, so the Lord gives the instructions to Vaidharbi, saying that now it is time for you to relook at me. I'm here to take you back, take you into service. And Narad Muni is finishing it. He says, my dear King Prachinabhari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, is celebrated to be known indirectly. Thus, I have described the story of Puranjana to you. Actually, it is an instruction for self-realization. Right? Factually, the path of Bhakti Yoga is the path of hearing directly about the pastimes of the Lord, of the Supreme Lord, right? So, but those who are not interested in hearing directly about the activities of the Lord, or who cannot understand them, can very effectively hear such stories and fables as this one narrated by Narada Muni. Okay, so why is Narada Muni giving an allegorical story when he had so many Shastric stories and the Leelas of the Lord that he could have spoken about? Because not everyone can understand, not everyone understands the devotional service. So he's given a story where a person moves from one body, moves to another body, moves through the different stages of life, and thus he actually comes in contact with the pure devotee, and he gets the association of a pure husband or devotee who gets the instruction and gets the instructions from the Supreme Lord in the Paramatma feature, so that they can go back home. Okay. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purpose of the 4th canto, 28th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Puranjana becomes a woman in next life. So we've kind of wrapped up this chapter. It's a nice long chapter. Thank you for joining and thank you for holding on. So in the next chapter, this Prachinabhari and Narad Muni will continue the discussions. Very nice conversation. So we can go there when we have time. Sorry, I had to rush in the last part, but I'm hoping you all understood the two basic concepts of how the spiritual master's service is very, very important, and how we should try to serve as much as possible, being renounced from this bodily concepts. Okay, then the Lord will come and guide us back. I'll pause here. If anyone has any questions, any comments, please feel free. Otherwise, we are kind of done with today's session.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. For those who are not in Bangalore, how can we attend the evening class?
The class is live, Mataji. The class will happen
we'll
live
be-
on YouTube.
Okay.
You can go to
Okay.
ISKCON Sheshadipuram YouTube channel. You can see Maharaj's class.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank
Very
you,
nice. Thank
Mataji.
you for a wonderful class.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna,
everyone, for
Prabhuji. Thank you,
joining in.
Prabhuji. Thank you for a very wonderful class. Really nice.
Thank you, Mataji. Hopefully, was able to pass on something. Thanks to
Yes,
the mercy of-
Prabhuji. Yes. So
Thanks.
so much I could understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Srimad
Dandavat Pranam.
Bhagavatam
Dandavat
ki
Pranam
jai.
to everybody assembled. My obeisances to
Thank
all.
you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Send us pranams. Thank you.